want to highlight some aspects of the commentary by Bruce Waltke and Kathy Fredericks, and echoing also upon some of the words I read from Walter Brueggemann in last week's session, that God had called forth a people for himself to break with the norms of the world of southern Mesopotamia, the latter years of the Sumerian civilization, which is one of the great civilizations of southern Mesopotamia throughout the early Bronze Age during the 3rd millennium BC. And as I mentioned, this was not the original homeland of the ancestors of Terah, Abram, Sarah, and company, but they had originally come from those areas of Upper Mesopotamia, sometimes referred to as Aram Naharaim, the Aramean region of the two rivers, the Tigris and Euphrates, so what we often refer to as Upper Mesopotamia, which today is northern Iraq, northeastern Syria, and southernmost southeastern corner of modern-day Turkey. The genealogy, of course, at chapter 11 ends with this segment highlighting Terah as the father of Abram. And of course, this links together the genealogy of chapter 11, the period between Noah and the new world of what God is fashioning in the midst of a decadent world of ancient Mesopotamia. Terah becomes, again, this last generation of this family in their polytheistic, multi-god worshiping world, the last of the generation whose center is Mesopotamia. They had somewhere during that 3rd millennium BC migrated down to the southern region, settled in Ur of the Chaldees. Again, as of course most commentaries will highlight, the term Chaldean or Chaldees is a reference to later Aramean stock of people like Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon, who conquered Jerusalem. He is a Chaldean, and so his background is also going back many generations from Upper Mesopotamia. And again, the area around Babylon is like in the middle of the region of the ancient Akkadian culture. But in the account as you've translated in your work in the Hebrew text for this week, the movement is out of southern Mesopotamia to head to a land of their forefathers initially, to the area around Haran. Now Haran, again, is just over into modern-day Turkey, just across the border from northern Syria today. As is highlighted in your commentary by Waltke, Tel El Makayar was this Ur of the Chaldeans, and then in modern-day Sanliurfa is the mound of ancient Haran. We'll also be noting that Haran is also the name of one of the family members of the biblical patriarchs, that they're going to journey out of Abraham upon the call of God while they're in Mesopotamia in the northern region. Terah, interesting, one of the facets that Waltke highlights is that both Ur and Haran were centers for the worship of the moon god Sin. Now, totally unconnected with our word sin. Sin, as it would be pronounced in ancient Akkadian, was a god associated with the moon. They had, of course, deities for sun, moon, all of the stars. Each of the stars was believed to be in ancient astral religion to be simply emanations from an individual god, a light shining forth from the gods of the heavens upon the earth. So the sun, which is known as either Utu in the Sumerian language or Shamash in the Mesopotamian language, also viewed as a deity. But interesting enough that at both Ur and at Haran, the moon god Sin was worshipped as, again, one among many, but the patron deity. Each city of ancient Mesopotamia had what we call a hierarchy of a pantheon of deities. An upper deity who would often, of course, have a female counterpart, and a collection of deities around. But one deity was typically viewed as the patron deity, like Marduk was for the city of Babylon, like Ashur was for the Assyrians, particularly in the city of Nineveh. Each of these cities had their patron deity. And again, the moon god Sin was the patron deity of the city of Haran. Some have suggested that that's perhaps why they stopped at Haran, as Terah taking his family along. This is not viewed as the call of God, but they had made this journey to another center where their favorite deity, perhaps in the family culture of ancient Mesopotamia, was also worshipped. But of course, as we read, that is where Terah dies. And from that point in chapter 12, we get the call of God upon Abraham and this ultimate purpose of being a blessing to the nations. I want to just highlight a couple of excerpts out of the commentary by Waltke and Fredericks. Similar to the reading I shared and is in the PowerPoint on the Abraham and history writing, what he says on the bottom of page 203, that God's call upon Abram and Sarah. Against the hopelessness, God's sovereign call of Abraham offers a bright hope. Indeed, Sarah's sterility emphasizes that fact that God's grace is beyond human imagination. She will bear children not by simple natural generation, but by a supernatural life that faith engenders. Through this childless couple, God will bring a new humanity that is born not out of the will of the husband, but out of the will of God. Read, of course, in the continuing narrative that you'll be translating over several weeks. And through that narrative, of course, we'll look at a couple of the major covenant passages, like in chapter 15 and chapter 17. Even through those special divine interventions into the life of this patriarchal family, there's still not the fulfillment of the promise of a nation through a child of this couple. It will be not at age 75, not at age 85, not at age 90. That promise of fulfillment of a son that would come forth in the child Isaac, born of Abraham and Sarah, later on in the narrative. After these covenant passages have highlighted, Abraham is in the land, pursuing God's call, not fully understanding how this is going to happen. And of course, the Isaac's name reflecting upon Sarah's laughing, and Abraham as well will laugh at the idea that, at age 99, he could conceive a child, and likewise the barrenness of Sarah. On page 202, by the previous page was 201, talks about the various scenes that follow through the plot. What are the projects that you'll be doing in preparation for your final paper? By the way, you'll need to be looking at choosing a passage for your exegetical final paper, and that passage, which should be, again, we'll talk about it more in a few moments, a definable pericope, a definable portion of text with a beginning and an end. We're looking at a literary analysis. At the top of page 202 in this commentary by Dr. Waltke, talks about the 5 scenes of the particular act as he breaks down again the commentary into the various life acts of the family of Abram and Sarah. That again in this portion, chapters 12 through 15, focus on the land and God's gift of the land eventually, though it will be several hundred years later, that Abraham sets out for this land. So he does, as he calls it, a literary analysis of book 6 of the book of Genesis, and this is book 6, act 1, as he called it. And so what he gives you in that paragraph is a literary analysis, a plot analysis of this portion of the biblical text in chapters 12 through 15. And this is the kind of thing I'll be wanting for you to do with your particular exegetical passage that you'll be choosing over the next couple of weeks. I'll be sending forth an email also to you this week highlighting some of the aspects, but begin looking at some of the handouts that are available in the various content areas of the units of 1 through 8 in this. And then finally, the characterization study is unit 9, which is due after the fall break period. So literary analysis of your passage will be one of the goals in your ultimate project of a full exegetical analysis of one of the biblical passages in chapters 12 to 36. Break at that point.